What's up, my dudes, and welcome to a brand new NCAA Football 14 Team Builder Dynasty starring the California State Panthers. This dynasty is going to be a little bit different than maybe some of the others that you've been checking out because we're going to do a lot of customization with sliders, recruiting, playbooks, coach progression, and some other interesting things that you maybe haven't seen before. But without too much further ado, let's get right into it. First of all, let's look at the custom sliders we'll be using. Shout out to Operation Sports for a great set of sliders. These really help out the game and give us a much more realistic feel. You can see that across the board we're upping the penalties being called, and that's because in a regular game by default not many penalties are called and it feels kind of bland since penalties are a very big part of football in general. So we're upping offsides to 100, false start to 80, holding to 80, face mask to 55, offensive pass interference to 99, defensive pass interference to 50, kick return, punt return interference to 1, clipping to 50, intentional grounding to 99, roughing the passer to 1. On roughing the kicker also to 10. These should spice up the game a little bit and give us a few more penalties called throughout the game. Next, let's look at the custom AI. This is where the bulk of the changes are happening. If we look immediately under QB accuracy, we're going to see that we've changed this to 5. This is a huge change from the default settings. We're going to get much more realistic quarterback play. You're not going to just be able to throw strikes and dimes all game, every game. You're going to get errant throws. Your timing needs to be much better. And it's a big change to how the game operates. Next is pass blocking. We're turning that down to 30, so you don't get those infinite pocket holds. Wide receiver catching down to 40, increasing the need for usering. Running back ability down to 40. Run blocking to 5. Anyone that's played this game a bit knows that the run blocking is a bit OP. Pass coverage we're turning down to 25. Interceptions down to 35, again increasing that need for user skill. Rush defense down to 5. Sacks come way too easy by the default settings, and this slows you down a little bit. Tackling to 25. Field goal power to 70, field goal accuracy to 0, so you got to nail that kick every time. Punt power to 25, punt accuracy to 50, and kickoff power to 0. So you can see we've quite nerfed our user skill quite a bit across the board, but I think all these nerfs are for good reasons and really spice up the game a bit. Next is the CPU settings. So QB accuracy we've also turned down to 5, and if you played by default, you know that the QBs throw lights out normally with the default settings. You'll play an FCS quarterback and he'll just throw strikes in you all game. This is going to give us much more realistic stat lines across the board for user and CPU as far as the quarterback position goes. Pass blocking we've turned down to 40, wide receiver catching down to 40, running back ability to 40, run blocking to 35, pass coverage to 30, interceptions to 30, rush defense to 5, tackling to 40, field goal power to 70, field goal accuracy to 35, punt power to 50, punt accuracy to 100, and kickoff power to 50. So the CPU hasn't been nerfed quite as much as we did with the user, but all these changes are also good and give you a much more realistic stat line across the board. Okay, next I'd like to talk about the first big caveat to the Dynasty, and that's recruiting restrictions. What are recruiting restrictions? Well, what that means is I'm only going to be recruiting within the prestige of the team. So the California State Panthers start at 1-star prestige, so I'm only going to be recruiting 1- and 2-star prospects until they reach 3-star prestige, and then I'll recruit 3-star prospects and below, 4-star prestige, 4-star prospects and below, and then once the team reaches 5-star prestige and above, everything will be on the board. I'll recruit normally at that point. I also won't be recruiting any JUCOs, any athletes during this time until I reach 5-star prestige. And we also won't be scouting, which is a big change because scouting gives you a huge advantage in the recruiting. And without that, you kind of got to wait until you sign the guy on, and then you get a little surprise at the end of the year to see what their true overall is. We're also going to only be recruiting guys, if possible, from our state and only off the interest board. But if there's 3 stars on the interest board early, I'm still not going to recruit them until the prestige warrants it. But only recruiting from the interested board, only recruiting from California, and this should slow down the rebuild quite a bit and make things a lot more satisfying when we do get the team up to a top tier level. One more thing I'd like to mention is about the coaching. I've set the coach progression to very, very slow, or whatever the slowest setting is, and this should slow down the coach progression and the amount of perks that come with that. The other thing is that we're going to run whatever playbooks are associated with the offensive and defensive coordinators' profiles. I'm also going to be asking coach for my play calls. And this should be kind of fun and interesting because it'll give us that sense that we kind of have an offensive and defensive coordinator participating. Lastly, I'd like to talk about custom conferences. I did change the conferences some. What I did is I changed the Big Four conferences into 16-team super conferences. And that's the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the ACC. The reason I did this is because I think this is the plan that's actually going down in real life, where all of these conferences are going to eventually have 16 teams, and the idea is that the conference champion of each one of these would occupy 1 seat of the playoff tree. We can't make a playoff tree, which is a bummer, but I tried to do the next big thing. So the notable changes are in the Pac-12, I've added California State and Boise, and then also Texas and Oklahoma. And that rounds out the division really nice and adds some decent competition with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. In the ACC, I've added West Virginia and Appalachian State. They already had 14 teams, so it was just a couple additions. The Big Ten picked up Notre Dame and Cincinnati, which are nice additions. I believe Notre Dame should probably be in this conference anyways in real life. And lastly, the SEC picked up Memphis and University of Central Florida. And I like the way this rounded out most of these divisions. They are subject to change potentially. There could be some other interesting changes or better team movement. The main change that this did is it stripped down the American Conference a little bit by doing this, because I also added some teams back into the Big 12 and gave them 12 teams back. So there's 2 conferences again, and they'll have a championship game. Besides that, though, I'm pretty happy with the conference makeup, and it may get tweaked again in the future, but we'll see how it all kind of plays out, and who's over or underperforming, and then make any adjustments we need to make to the conferences as needed. And that's it for the majority of the big customization changes to the Dynasty. But just to reiterate the big stuff one more time, we're using hardcore elite sliders from Operation Sports. We have recruiting restrictions that are going to make the recruiting process much more difficult and much more interesting. We're going to be using whatever playbooks our offensive and defensive coordinators want to run, and asking coach for the majority of the play calls throughout the game. And we've tweaked the Big Four conferences and added some teams in to round them out and to make them a little bit more robust.
All right, now that we got through all the nitty-gritty details of the Dynasty, let's go ahead and meet the squad. It's the California State Panthers, hailing from Venice Beach, California. A very cool cupcake status team builder download that I found. First of all, we should meet the head coach, and that's head coach Curtis Slade. He looks like a hard ass, but he's also keeping it smooth with that 3-piece suit, because you know appearances are everything in LA. Now let's meet the players. First we have Waylon Goodman, a true freshman quarterback. He's coming in at 70 overall with 75 throw power, 77 accuracy, 79 speed. And these are really decent stats for a true freshman quarterback. And honestly, at 70 overall, he's coming in at one of the bright spots on the roster. And with Waylon, it brings up our first big decision to make is, do you start the true freshman quarterback, or we have a senior redshirt quarterback, BJ Nicholson, who's a single point higher on the overall at 71, 87 speed, which is really good, and 77 throw power, 76 accuracy. So do you go with the upperclassmen or just get the true freshman snaps right away? Last on the roster is Sam Lawrence, and he's our third stringer, and probably not going to get too much of an opportunity to play unless there's horrible injuries or something. He's coming in at 69 overall, 77 throw power, 79 accuracy. And he's only 59 speed because he's a pocket passer where the other two quarterbacks are both scramblers, and they fit our playbook, the pistol, a little bit better, and that's probably why, BJ or Waylander end up starting. Next, let's take a look at the halfback situation. So first on the depth chart is James Tanner. He's a redshirt junior, and coming in at 80 overall, he's easily the best player on the entire team. He has 83 speed, 87 excel, 81 agility. He's 77 aware, 82 break tackle, 80 carrying, and 83 trucking. He's not very elusive, but that's okay. 71 strength, so he's a strong guy. 85 stiff arm, 71 spin move, 82 juke are nice stats to round him out. And so James is probably going to end up being one of our workhorses, because we're going to definitely have to be a run-first team. Next on the depth chart is Sam Schroeder. He's 6'4", 223, so he's huge. He's kind of in that Brandon Jacobs mold. And he's coming in quite a bit lower overall at 74 overall, but 90 speed and 81 excel are really nice stats for Sam. And 75 carrying, 77 trucking. He's kind of a mediocre back, but we'll get the most out of Sam. Maybe even have him return some kicks, because he looks like he's probably one of our more elusive players with better speed on the team. All right, and after Sam, we have Traw Banks at fullback, coming in at 62 overall. Not much to see there. And then we come to our receivers, and our first receiver is Omar Berry. And he's another true freshman, and coming in at 73 overall. That's a nice stat for a true freshman. 93 speed sticks out at us. 75 catching, 70 route running, 65 catching traffic, 55 spectacular catch. So some room for some things to be desired coming out of the catching category, but he's got some potential to be a number one receiver on our team, that's for sure. 74 injury looks like it could be an issue, so we'll have to watch out for that. Barry is followed by Arnold, McDougal, Gibbs, Saria, and Garner, who are all sub-70 receivers, so not much to see there. Our tight end is Lawrence Wilkerson. He's 6'4" senior. He's at 66 overall. Our left tackle is going to be Abdul Ward, who's 70 overall, a bright spot on the O-line. Left guard is going to be Gerard Hurd at 63 overall. Our center is Jamar Hart at 67 overall. Playing right guard for us will be Bubba Doty, a freshman redshirt. And then our other bookend is Troy Pollard at the right tackle. Starting at left end, we have Ronald Dudley, who's our impact left end, coming at 69 overall. Our right end is going to be Brant West at 71 overall. Our D tackles are going to be headed up by Corey Collier and Vandermeulen at 68 and 64 overall. That's the inside guys. Our left outside linebacker is going to be Harvey Hawkins, coming in at 72 overall. Our middle linebacker is going to be Zach Graham, coming in at 66 overall. And then our right outside linebacker is going to be Hiriam Price at 72 overall. So, decent linebacker core. Our cornerbacks, we have a lot to be desired here. We have Sylvester Buchanan, who's our best corner at 68 overall, and it just gets worse from there. Our safeties, Sheldon McCoy at free safety at 78 overall, and Spencer Manson at strong safety at 75 overall, are easily going to be the rocks of our secondary. They're pretty much our two best players on defense. And last and probably least, we have Dante Johnson kicking and Lamar Hurd punting. And that's it for the depth chart of our Cupcake Team Builder squad. Pretty good starting point for a rebuild, and it should be pretty fun as we build it up over the course of the season. All right, and that about wraps up the introduction to the team. We went over the finer points of the Dynasty and introduced you to all our Cupcake squad that we'll be rebuilding with over the course of the season. Thanks for dropping by. I'll be trying to put out a couple videos each week to update on the recruiting and other fun stuff. And we'll be doing a game every weekend. So stop back by, and thanks for coming by and checking out the team.